Thank you to Blackology Coffee Company for sponsoring this video. Take 10% off your next order at Blackology Coffee Company by using the link in the description, www.blackologycoffeecompany.com/Angela. Hey everybody, my name is Angela. I'm your host and producer here at Honey and Hustle, and today I'm joined all the way from Pennsylvania from Erik Ozimek. He is a leadership keynote speaker and a former pro soccer player. Erik, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Angela, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So what are some lessons in leadership that you learned throughout your career as a pro soccer player that have translated well to the career that you have now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one of the things that instantly comes to mind when I look at my soccer career, and certainly now how it translates to the business world, no matter what industry you're in, is I think we would all agree adversity is inevitable, right? It's only a matter of time. It doesn't matter how gifted one is or talented they are on or off the field, in the office building, in the marketplace. Skill and acumen are important, right? You want to have the talent for sure. You want to always be honing those skills and improving your skills. But there's always going to be the proverbial flat tires, right? And so what my encouragement to everybody listening to this is you want to adopt the mindset of becoming a great adversity responder, okay? In the sports world, certainly in the soccer world, and really this is any sport, if you have a setback, again, whether it's an injury, a bad performance in practice, bad performance in a game, Lord knows the referee's going to make some bad calls. If you can't respond well, you're never going to last, right? Because so much of the business world today that I'm in, and any of you that listening to this are in, it comes down to emotional management, right? And so if you can become a great responder to those again, hiccups or speed bumps, I'm telling you, you're going to set yourself apart. I always encourage people to think, look, it is, if you include that as part of the process, it won't eat your lunch, right? And so one of the job down would be that which you resist persists. I always love the idea that, hey, you know what? The more bad stuff that I go through, man, that's just going to make me a better coach or better communicator one day. Because we would all agree, listen, soccer, sports, definitely in business, government, churches, schools, whatever profession you're in, your effectiveness to help somebody else, to me, largely comes down to your ability to relate to them, right? I think we would agree you cannot relate to them if you've never been there. But so if you have this vault of flat tires, right? This vault of issues and challenges and pulled hamstrings, so to speak, then when you're in a position of leadership, of a coach or a mentor, you now can say with integrity, hey, I know how you feel. So to me, that's one of the biggest things that I try to apply today.
Yeah. And speaking of integrity, I think that's a very big thing that, and no matter what industry you're in, if you're a leader, people are looking for you to lead with integrity. They're looking for you to think not just of yourself, but of the people that your decisions affect, right? So what does it mean to you to lead a business or to lead anything, just to be a leader with integrity?
Yeah, that's a good question. The low-hanging fruit there, right, is the obvious ones. Be honest, right? It's be truthful when you're filling out, whether it's a document or a presentation. Even things like show up on time, be early. I love the saying, 10 minutes early is 5 minutes late, right? You should always be the first one there. That's just being someone of integrity, because everyone's reading your billboard. The question is, what is your billboard saying? Is it saying I'm sloppy, I show up late, I don't look the part, I don't stay to the end, or I'm always distracted, I'm not focused? That's, believe it or not, that has something to do with integrity, because it's all a heart issue, right? It's a function of the heart, right? And so I think those are some obvious ones maybe, but I also think that when I think about coaches that I've had and business leaders I've worked with, the ones that I'm maybe not even working with anymore now, but I still think about in my daily business diet that impact me years later, they were never afraid to admit fault. That's an integrity issue, right? If it's never your fault, Erik, come on. Eventually someone's going to say, dude, if you're lying about that, where else are you lying, right? And then the other thing too to think about is the best leaders, is that they're never afraid to admit weaknesses. See, it's incredible to me how many people think, and this is where the paradigm shift has to happen. They think that, well, if I, again, sports, or let's talk bigger picture here, like in family life or business or work life, if you can admit your weaknesses, again, there's over time, maybe not right away, but over time, people start to question your character, thus your integrity. And now, when your back's up against the wall and a pandemic happens, or God forbid some external force comes in, a weather issue, a sickness, when your infantry, so to speak, is looking at you to be that 5-star general that they need, they're not going to trust you whatever you say, even if what you're saying is right, because you built up this idea in their mind, that you're Superman or Captain America. We know those are only superheroes, right? We know that even they have weaknesses, right? So I think, part of being a powerful leader of integrity is one that says, hey, I'm going to be transparent, I'm going to be truthful, of course, but I'm not afraid to admit weaknesses. I'm not afraid to say, hey, that's my fault, guys. It's my fault. We didn't hit quota this quarter. It's my fault. Let me tell you why it's my fault. I didn't give you the tools that you needed to be positioned to win. That makes sense? Hope that helps.
Absolutely, yeah. So in a lot of ways, you started off saying like you have to be able to lead without emotion. But then when we start talking about integrity, you said it's a matter of the heart, right?
Yeah.
What is within you to be honest, to be truthful, and be transparent. Yeah. So how do you strike that balance between, yes, not making decisions from an emotional standpoint, but showing emotion, showing compassion, showing empathy, and leading with integrity? So how do you do that?
Well, I think someone can show emotion. Like I'm a pretty emotional guy. Like I still cry at movies, and like my 11-month-old daughter, she looks at me and blinks, and I just melt. So I think it's just part of being. You look at it this way, okay? Is to be the best relator, you got to be able to relate to all different types of people. Business, sometimes it's said, there's a shark, dolphin, whale, urchin, right? The shark is competitive. The dolphin is just all about fun. The whale just wants to save the world, and the urchin just has to know every detail, right? So these are different types of people, all great, all have their strengths, but also have their weaknesses. And so being able to be vulnerable with them, like I'm not an urchin. So when I talk to an urchin, I'm like, listen, I don't know all the details of what you're talking about, but right, here's where we can kind of come together and work in harmony, right? So I think, back to the heart question, I think everything is a function of the heart, meaning really, it's again another cliche, but I steer where I stare, right? What am I looking at? What am I focused on? What's my moral compass? Do I have one? What keeps me between the lines? What has me stay between or in my own swim lane? Because I think anytime that someone is, like I certainly not a pastor, but I believe in God, and I think I never want to be accused of being that convenient Christian, right? That's just a Christian when it matters, or Christian on Sundays. You know what I mean? Does that permeate every part of my life? That's what I mean by a heart issue. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the biggest area, because from that everything else flows, right? And if your heart's whacked and your heart's in struggling, we all have struggles, but if your heart is always wondering where to navigate, then I think it's going to eventually spill over to other areas, including business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about something very interesting with your cliche, is you steer where you stare. I think it's impossible to talk about business that's going to be successful, at least, without talking about vision, without talking about goals. And I think a lot of people now, what the goal, I say, that's being marketed right now is growth. I want to grow my business growth, how to grow your business, how to scale your business. But growth looks different for different people, right? It's different for a solopreneur than it looks for maybe an entrepreneur, maybe a startup, maybe, a mid, level enterprise. It looks different for all these different facets of a business. So when you talk about vision and talk about having a compass and having a direction for your business, what are some things that you would encourage leaders to think about when they are planning that vision?
Right. Yeah, that's good. Well, the first thing is that, no one winning today in business, to my knowledge, is doing it with the Lone Ranger approach. This is not even if you are a solopreneur, and you're by yourself building your own brand and company, you should absolutely have, even if it's an invisible board of directors, even people that don't even know they're part of your board of directors, but you know they are, right? Who are those 4 or 5? If I was to ask you so-and-so on listening, who are your 4 or 5 people that you're consistently seeking out advice and counsel from, right? I mean, here's the encouraging part. You're one idea away, one perspective, one tweak, one adjustment away from an explosion, right? Whether that's in revenue, which obviously we all want to make money, and you know, good attitudes don't pay bills. We gotta make money. We gotta score touchdowns, right? But I think sometimes it's just that perspective, that little tweak that we need. I think as an entrepreneur, whether it's in the tech field or any other field, you have to remind yourself that, you know, you've probably come a long way, right? It's very easy to dwell and obsess about how far you still have to go, but don't forget how far you've come, right? I mean, you're in the middle of the trenches right now, probably building a business, or maybe you've grown exponentially over the years. But I think it's important to remember, hey, man, what you're doing now was once upon a time you thought was you know, pie in the sky and you know, like space talk. Now you're doing it. So you've come a long way. And really the hardest part of starting a business or growing a business is just that, getting started, right? They say the richest place in the world is the graveyard, right? Because there's you know, cures for cancer have died, right? The greatest songs in the world that we're never going to hear have died because the musician, guy or gal, didn't have the gumption, the courage to pursue that. So that's the first thing I would tell everybody is, man, you're already on the way. I think in terms of, you're right, growth is a big talking point today. Please, no one tune me out on this one, because this is so important. You absolutely must maintain a perpetual state of learning, right? Here it is. When the leader stops learning, the leader should stop leading. Okay, and really, I mean, you know, look, these are real books, by the way. Someone asked me if this is like a screensaver, but you know, like I haven't read everything in here, but having a book a month. I mean, what if you read 10 pages every day of a great book? That's a book a month. It's 12 books a year. You can't tell me that you're not going to be a better person, more kinder, more empathetic. Empathy, I think, is a key factor that's stopping people's growth. You know, again, a relationship builder. We know that collaboration is the new king right now. We know that it's absolutely essential. So I think that's one of them too. I think, you know, if this is not as applicable if you're just by yourself, but if you, but again, this could be still pulled in if you have that little, you know, board of directors. But I think one of them that's key that I see right now in my day to day is, you know, having a safe environment. Right? And I don't mean like physical security. I'm talking about that. I'm talking like safe environment to where, you know, ideas can be tossed out there and put in the blender for discussion, right? And I think if there's ever a time when you as a leader, you by title, right? Anyone can say they're a leader, but if you are the highest person on the food chain and you're the only one talking about ideas on a weekly basis, there's major problems, right? Because what that means is your soldiers, so to speak, your rainmakers, are now, for whatever reason, right or wrong, they feel suppressed to even bring new ideas to the table. And that's a painful work environment, because here's what happens. Now the chatter behind the scenes starts, now little groups start, now toxicity sets in, now you have a cancerous work environment that is never gonna flourish. You know, and then when you look at any type of company, any sports team, any government, any church that's not doing well, a lot of it's that. Is because people walk into that said building and they are scared to pieces that they're going to be exposed or made fun of or mocked, or every time they bring up an idea, it's always shut down or never even addressed, never even acknowledged, right? So I think that's, I know that sounds kind of weird because, you know, normally when people say, hey, how do you grow a company? It's all about, you know, refinement of the widget, you know, or adjusting the pricing model, or better marketing, or better collateral, or more webinars. I mean, all that stuff is important, right? But if this piece over here of safety and comfort and where ideas can really flow is not alive, this doesn't matter. because I've seen companies, I know of companies right now that have all of this. They have the best of the best, and they are not doing well, to say the least. Their Q2, their Q3, I mean, I think they're even done blaming on the pandemic. Because look, here it is. I'll end with this. If you look at the companies that didn't just make it through the pandemic, and I know it's still going on, but that are thriving right now, right? Some of them did not have the best widget to sell. They did not. They had a group of people, 3-4 people, a big organization, a big whatever, that all believed in the mission. They all believed in the purpose. They never felt weird about bringing an idea to the table, because they were in a situation where they could bring an idea to the boardroom, so to speak, or on a Zoom call, and someone would say, hey, you know what, Jim, that's a great idea, but why don't we add Susie's idea to that? And now we have the perfect storm. So hope that helps.
Yeah, no, yeah, it did. And I think like we haven't really touched on this a lot on the show, so I'm glad that you brought that up, which is like, how can you empower the people that you work with? Even if you're a solopreneur, like when you're seeking people's advice, make sure you're seeking it with an open mind and an open heart.
Yeah.
And if you're working with even just part-time different people, or you're growing a business and you have some full-time employees that are with you, yes, like bring them into the mission, bring them into the business, and make them feel as if they have agency. Not just make them feel, but truly empower them to have agency within their specialty and within your company and within your business and within your goals. So that, you know what I'm saying, like when they can start to think that way, then that's when the new ideas start coming and they start adding to ideas maybe you already had.
Yeah.
Or maybe the approach to it, or they have experience with it you don't. So I mean, it's about like making all these puzzle pieces fit, and really aligning with, you know, like why you brought them onto the company to begin with, right? Because a lot of ways, like for a small business owner, for an entrepreneur, for a nonprofit founder even, you're not bringing them in to be a cog in a wheel, right? You're bringing them in on some level to work with a very high level of autonomy, right?
Sure.
And you don't want them to feel as though they need to ask you for everything. Because I think too, like if you have this feedback loop where you're the only one that decisions pass through, and you're gatekeeping that decision-making process, you're making it harder on yourself, honestly, because you're stamping how much work that you can complete as well.
Right.
So that's very interesting to talk about, but yes.
Absolutely. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I would just add to that, if it's okay. You know, I think when you're building a company, and again, folks, this is applicable whether you're in startup mode, whether maybe you're raising seed money, or you know you're opening up your 14th location and you know you're eclipsing, you know, $80 million, right? Is most companies, most businesses out there, it's really a function of you're trying to solve a problem, right? I mean, now I'm in the tech space, and so we're always solving problems, but everything out there is designed to solve a problem, right, to some level. And so if I'm going to solve problems with you as one of your teammates, I need to know who you are. I mean, I know that's old school here, and it's like I probably just lost some of you, but come back. It's amazing to me how many times we try to go to battle with our team and crush it, and we say all these things like we're going to smash this year's goals and we're going to make more revenue and scale and grow and bring on angel investors and all this. We say all these things, but then we forget we don't even know the person next to me. He's wearing the same jersey. Yeah, I've never been out for a cup of coffee. I've never grabbed a beer with him. I've never been out to lunch with the whole office. That's bizarre. So the question is how can I legitimately solve a problem with you if I don't know who you are? I think it's great. I think to me that is as clutch, because the better I know who you are, the better we can all help each other define our roles. Right? Jim Collins 101, get the right people on the bus and then sort out the seating assignments. So there's certain people that you want to get on the bus, but then, okay, now we're on the bus, we're all standing up. Bus driver saying, sit down. Well, where do I sit? It's based on what you bring to the table, which can only be discovered is after I get to know you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that analogy too, because it has to be kind of both. It has to be people that you get along with and work well with, but also people who are competent and capable to do the work, right? It keeps this balance, you know what I mean?
That's right.
And that's also just a high level of discernment. I'm just gonna say it, because like for somebody like me who hasn't been in the corporate world for very long at all, or wasn't in the corporate world for very long, it's like there's some experience I don't have. Like I've never hired anybody before working for myself. So it's also like seeking wisdom and seeking advice from people who have been there before, right? And knowing when to ask for help. And so that was definitely one area of help that I needed in my business. So those are the end of the questions that I have for you. But as promised, I have some bonus questions for you. Reach out to our Twitter communities. If you're not following us on Twitter, do that now. We are at Honey and Hustle on Twitter. And we have 2 questions from our followers. And the first one is, what's one pitfall that new business leaders encounter, and is there any way to avoid it?
One pitfall that new business leaders?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, well, there's probably many, but one of them that pops out right away is that they try to do it all themselves, right? I mean, it almost becomes, it's interesting because when you ask most business owners, I used to be this way. When I had a little soccer company that I owned in Charlotte, North Carolina, I tried to wear 12 hats. And man, if I could go back knowing what I know now, or if I could go back then knowing what I know now, oh my goodness, I would have empowered people, not barked at people, but empowered people to do stuff that I thought I could do great, but I was not very good. Whether it's marketing or, any kind of digital media or social media, that is not my gig, right? But I tried to do everything really, really well, and nothing really got done exceptionally well, right? So again, it's that magnifying glass concept, right? If you move it around too much, nothing really ever burns, right? So what is the one thing or 2 things that you as a leader know without a shadow of a doubt that really no one can probably do better than you? That's not being arrogant. That's just saying, okay, here's the thing that I know that I can do better than anybody else, period. Okay. All right. Now, remember, I said 1 or maybe 2 things, not 12. And then what are the other? It's really about a half a dozen things, probably. What's number 3, 4, 5, and 6? Who can I empower, right? To maybe have them do? Remember, asking them to get involved is not bugging them. It's actually elevating their importance, right? So by asking, Mary or Tom or whoever it is, hey, I would love you to be a part of the team. Here's why. I've noticed that you have this skill set that I don't have anywhere near as good as you do. And oh my goodness, would it help the company vision grow? Here's what the vision is, by the way. Here's how many more people we can impact. But I really need, oh, really, Erik? That's not that big of a deal. I know, not to you, but to me it is. Right. So I think it's empowering other people and trying not to do everything on your
Mm-hmm.
own.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, as for creatives watching this, I think some of them maybe feel a little hit right now because we're so used to being, freelancers or solopreneurs, not necessarily working in a team. And that team aspect, like you said, it can look different. It could look like that invisible board of directors. It could look like just collaborating with people on a regular basis and not necessarily losing that autonomy of being a freelancer or a solopreneur. So it looks different for everybody, but again, like it's the acknowledgement you can't do everything yourself. Not well, at least,
That's right.
So thank you. Second one is, what's your perspective or openness to change?
Well, I mean, it's holy cow. I'm very open to it, and I think everyone is forced to learn how to be open to change based on the last 12 to 18 months. We don't need to go through the revamp or the review of what's transpired. I mean, this has been of epic, like, historical proportions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's right. Holy cow. I mean, what's fascinating about this is that anytime there is external change, right? Again, pandemic, governmental stuff, marketplace things happening that are really, are of just massive proportions. It causes us we have to change. And I think what's cool about that is that we learn, hey, change is actually pretty good, right? Now, I don't want to change too often, because then I end up right where I started, right? But you have to be open to change. I think you have to be open to consideration of change, is what I would encourage the person that asked that question to kind of include. I love we talked about this, you and I did, Angela, earlier, but one of the illustrations or pictures I have in my mind, because I love barbecue chicken, right? And I love it. And when you put, the one way to make barbecue chicken, you have to, at least here, is you put it into a crock pot. And it takes hours, right? Now, the other people don't have that. People don't have the crock pot mentality, right? They have the microwave mentality, right? They put it in there for 5 seconds, and God forbid it's not a filet mignon, right? And so I would changing our mentality of, if I change too quick and I change too much, I never gave that thing a chance to really produce or reveal itself. So having the crock pot mentality is one of, it's applicable for goals. It's applicable to letting people, really show their worth, but it's also applicable to giving an idea or a concept, a strategy, a chance to really grow. Now, I think, at some point you have to say, okay, this is not working. We got to make a pivot here. But I also think that entrepreneurs, me included, are guilty of moving things too fast. Nothing ever gets a chance to, we're always about change. And it's like, man, 9 changes ago was the way to do it. We only gave it 4 minutes, right? So hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much for answering my questions, answering questions from Twitter, and just joining me this morning. It's a little early, but I think we pulled it out. I think we did good.
Absolutely.
So thank you again so much, Erik.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.